Jai Hind viewers, this is Lt Gen Kapil Aggarwal, your host for today's edition of MRO Digest Forums. Today, we have Brig YVR Vijay as our guest, who is actually a dear colleague of mine from the Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers, Indian Army, who had quit Army early to blaze a trail in the corporate sector. He's basically an electronics engineer who did MTech from IIT Madras. He's an alumni of National Defence Academy, Kadakwasla, Defence Services Staff College, Wellington, and Army War College, Mro. He has handled a number of important assignments in Indian Army, as also being responsible for the MRO of a large inventory of weapon systems and equipment with state-of-the-art, cutting-edge technologies. He quit the Indian Army prematurely in 2012 and joined Enercon India, now known as Windworld India. Subsequently, he joined Suzlon India, a marquee company in the field of renewable energy, in the year 2016 as Chief Operating Officer. Amongst his many responsibilities, he was also responsible for maintaining approximately 9,000 wind turbines, which is actually about 1/3 of the inventory of the total wind turbines held in India. He is now the subject matter consultant to Boston's Consulting Group and Third Bridge. Welcome, Brigadier Vijay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction.
Brigadier Vijay, to start with, I would like to know from you that when you joined Suzlon in the year 2016 and the company was going through a financial crunch, there must have been many issues. So what were the main challenges you faced in the beginning?
So Suzlon as a company started in 1994, and over the period 1994 to 2007, it grew rapidly and had become the 5th largest wind energy company in the world. And it was a darling of the Indian stock exchanges, and the stock was one of the most prized stocks to be held. However, in the year 2007, Suzlon had bought 2 large companies of Europe, RE Power and Senvion, very huge companies. And unfortunately, in the year 2008, the Goldman Sachs and the subprime crisis happened, and Europe went into a recession. Now, to acquire these companies, Suzlon had taken a massive leverage. We were over-leveraged very heavily in debt. And when the international business collapsed, so did Suzlon. And the Suzlon stock fell by all over 99% of its value. And a lot of shareholders lost the value of their stocks. So when I took over in 2016, the banks had regained control and they were largely operating Suzlon. They had done a change, and a new group CEO was brought in, a new CEO was brought in, and I was brought in as the COO. So these were the big changes which took place in 2016. And when we took over, what we found that due to this financial crunch, there were a lot of areas where operations got affected. Due to delayed salaries, often 5 to 6 months, we lost a lot of human resource. A lot of our skilled manpower had left the company and gone. There was a shortage of maintenance spares, which resulted in machines getting neglected. A large part of the fleet was in breakdown and not running. The preventive maintenance had not been done. The lubrication had not been done. The health of the fleet was in bad shape. And most importantly, the entire morale of the workforce was low because of this crisis. But they knew that fresh funding has come in and they were looking forward to this. So that was the condition of the company when I joined as CEO in 2016.
Yeah, Brigadier Vijay, as you mentioned that a lot of skilled manpower had left and the morale was low. Now, HR is a very important element of any enterprise. So what initiatives did you take when you assumed charge in this field of HR?
Suzlon at full strength roughly holds about 6,000 engineers that are diplomas and engineers in a ratio of almost 80-20, 80% being diplomas and the rest being regular engineers, BTech engineers. And we were almost 30-40% short of manpower. So the first thing we did was we went out to industry. We got a lot of experienced manpower from industry. We hired from other industries, literally almost like poaching. We also hired a number of freshers, a lot of freshers from engineering colleges and from diploma colleges. We hired a lot of electrical and mechanical engineers. And we revamped our entire training, the induction training. We had a separate induction training done for the freshers and a separate from those who came in from the other part of the industry. And we ensured when we deployed these people, there was a mix of experienced and freshers at every site. We were spread over 160 sites across India. It is almost like 160 small workshops across the country. So we ensured that each workshop has a mix of experienced and freshers. And then subsequent things, we introduced something called a performance-linked incentive, where we gave a lot of incentive to these technicians in case they were able to get the fleet back up and performing at a high level. We ensured that data flow to the technicians took place on time. We redressed the problem of spares. We redressed the problem of their salaries, and everything was bought online, and we were ready to go. And a continuous training was set up. We had got a very fine EME officer again, one Colonel Vinay Gupta, who had come in as the head of our data analytics along with me, who was coming along with me from my previous company. And he came in and he ensured that the technicians on site are empowered with live data at all times. And a number of apps were developed, and our entire data infrastructure and the digital infrastructure across Suzlon was revamped. We worked a lot on the site leadership, much like we do in the army when we work on the junior level leadership. And we worked a lot on site leadership. We ensured that every site in charge, we had 160 site in charges, was fully made aware of the health of his fleet, what is the budget that he has, what is the spare situation. They were given a complete visibility into our SAP system, so he knew what spare and what resources in each place. Plus, he was getting live data throughout. So those were the changes we did to ensure that the HR was brought on grid.
Yeah, Brigadier Vijay, I think very comprehensive list of HR initiatives you have outlined. You mentioned something about digital infrastructure. So we would like to know what exactly were the steps taken in this realm of digital infrastructure applications, as also ERP, and in case ERP was implemented, if you could throw some light on that.
So the Suzlon turbine has got 74 sensors on it. These sensors basically are capturing various critical data of the major components and other data like what is the temperature, wind speed, wind direction, humidity, etc. And this data comes from the sensors through a fiber optic link to the site office, and from the site office through the internet to our control center in Pune. Now, over this period of 5 years, this whole infrastructure had got damaged in the sense we were not able to maintain the fiber optic links. In a number of places, they were cut. So data was not flowing from the turbine to the control center. So the turbines were a lot of turbines were operating in standalone mode. So if data doesn't come, then the technicians have to go to the turbine, and these sites are large. Each site is spread over maybe 300-400 square kilometers. So for the technicians to reach, it takes time, and so the restoration times were much more. So the first thing we did was we restored the entire fiber optic connectivity. We had negotiations done with the internet service providers so that the internet service was brought up to par. And we also added redundancy in the form of RF connectivity. So even if a fiber optic link drops somewhere, we had radio frequency connectivity from the turbine to the site offices. So that was the digital infrastructure which came up. And we also, the next step we did was we implemented SAP ERP. SAP was already there, but once the connectivity came in, we ensured that every engineer in Suzlon was trained on SAP. So data entry began to take place across our 6,000 technicians who were there. Whatever work they do was put into the SAP system. We added the SAP material resource planning module as well, so that our supply chain came up to par. And as I had brought out, Vinay Gupta was heading the entire data analytics and digital infrastructure team. And he also added using the data now, which began to come in through the SCADA system. SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. Through this data, he and his data analytics team, he built very strong predictive maintenance software, which we began to use across. A number of apps were developed, which were mobile-based apps and provided to the teams. Mobile-based apps which covered preventive maintenance, which provided guidance on how to carry out repair for a particular type of warning, reset, or fault, on the health and safety, on the lubrication status, and also on handling taking over of new projects. There were mobile apps developed which were provided to all our technicians, and these were being fed through the SCADA from the central monitoring station at Pune. So that was the upgradation of the digital infrastructure.
Predictive Vijay, you mentioned that all the engineers were trained on SAP.
Yes.
And however, the technicians, they had, of course, access to all this technical infrastructure. How exactly they were empowered on ground with intelligence coming from digital data? If you could throw some light on that.
So all this data used to come to our central monitoring station, the CMS in Pune, the central monitoring station in Pune, where it's a large data center that we have. And here we had a team of experts of the machine who were continuously analyzing this data and creating something called the plan of the day. The plan of the day was made site-wise. And every morning at exactly 6:30 in the morning, a mail which used to go to all my 160 site engineers saying, this is how each component of your fleet behaved. These were the warnings on each machines. These were the type of resets that took place on each machine. And these are the faults for which each machine is down. And this acted as an initiator for the day. So in the morning, when we have the toolbox talk, when all the technicians come, the plan of the day was available with the site in charge to disseminate to his team. So he used to tell the team that this machine had this warning, this machine had this reset error, this machine is down for this reason. And where a machine was down for a particular reason, the software also sent to him what are the repair instructions, what are the spares required, and if that spare is there in their stores at that moment. So all they had to do was collect that. In addition to this, they were also given the generation data. If a particular turbine was generating slightly less base for a particular wind speed, it is supposed to generate a certain amount of power. If it was generating slightly less, so those outliers were also bought out. And we had a predictive maintenance module running. The predictive maintenance module covered the drivetrain, the gearbox, the main bearing, the pitch bearings, and the generators. So wherever a particular turbine, these components were slightly away from the normal, were lying as outliers, this turbine number was sent to the site in charges, and they were asked to check these turbines. So this is how the man on ground was empowered with data about his fleet. So he knew exactly which turbine is down for what reason and what is the action to be taken. And every morning this was disseminated. And in the evening, we had a similar type of mail going down to the sites. And when the work was closed for the day, again, the debriefing was done and this was updated. Not only that, because we had trained our entire lot of technicians and engineers on SAP, they were able to live feed whatever they are doing into the SAP. So our SAP was always updated. There was a maximum delay of 12 hours in our SAP systems from what is a live situation to the SAP.
I'm sure it appears a very effective system. Vijay, you mentioned about the predictive maintenance module. Sir. And how did your MRO setup exactly utilize the condition-based maintenance or the predictive maintenance module? Could you throw some light on it?
Yes. So we had, for the condition-based monitoring system, we had done that only on the mechanical drivetrain. So we already had sensors on the fleet which recorded what is the temperature. These were on the main bearings, on the low speed shaft, on the intermediate shaft, and the high speed shaft. It was also on the various elements of the gearbox. So the temperature sensors were there, which was inbuilt as per the design of Suzlon. We had sensors which monitored the oil level, as well as sensors which monitored the amount of metal in the oil in various places. We added sensors which measured vibration. So vibration along the entire drivetrain was measured. So our condition-based monitoring system was getting this data through the SCADA at the Suzlon Monitoring Control Center. And here we had hired an external team who were experts on CBM, who were analyzing this data and finding out where are the outliers, where is there likely to be some fault on the drivetrain. And this data was every morning in the plan of the day sent to the sites. So the site team will go and physically investigate that is there a problem with the sensor, or is there a problem actually with the machine and the data coming is having an issue. As far as predictive maintenance goes, sir, we were getting data about the gearbox. We were getting data about the main bearing, the pitch bearing, which was where we were monitoring the current. There's a separate pitch bearing for each of the three blades. So we were getting the electrical consumption along the three pitch axes and on the generator. So on a particular site of 60, 70 machine wind turbines, we would catch those top three variants, outliers in terms of high temperature, in terms of high vibration, in terms of high electric consumption or low generation as part of our predictive maintenance capsule. And it will go to the site along with a checklist of these are the aspects to be checked. So they were able to predictively go to the turbine and find out if there's a problem which is likely to come up. Now, in the wind industry, for supposing a gearbox or a blade has to be changed, the effort involved is massive. The gearbox weighs something like 80, 90 tons. It is at a height of almost 150 meters at times. And you have to hire large cranes, and to position a crane, it can take us 30 to 45 days to get a crane into place. Plus, you have to take a lot of clearances from the various authorities to move such large plant and machinery. So with the help of predictive maintenance, what we were able to do is we were able to move this plant and machinery in advance, make it reach the turbine, and then take a turbine shutdown. So that saved us immense amount of money, as well as prevented turbines from being shut down for long periods waiting for plant and machinery. And it made a dramatic change to our machine availability as well as to the profits that were coming in.
That's very impressive utilization of technology for MRO. And Brig Vijay, I'm tempted to ask you, did you utilize virtual reality and augmented reality applications also?
Yes. Again, thanks to the core of EME, there was another very brilliant officer, Colonel Vikas Puri of the 1990 batch, who had left the army roughly at the same time as me and Vinay Gupta, and he had joined a private company called Mobilia. And currently he's, of course, gone off to the US. And Mobilia was a master in developing augmented reality and virtual reality packages. So we hired Mobilia, and they developed a lot of training packages for us through augmented reality. They also developed an expert system for us, which enabled the technician to go through the stages of repair, and in case he finds a new fault, to add on to it. So a self-learning expert system. And we developed training packages to help technicians at induction. So virtual reality, close to real immersive reality conditions were provided, making a engineer feel he's on the top of a turbine at 400 feet height. There's high winds blowing. And in fact, it was so realistic that often we could find out people who have vertigo just by putting the virtual reality head systems on them. So we use this for training of our technicians.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to inquire, Brigadier Vijay, is, Suzlon is a corporate entity with focus on profitability. And you have outlined a series of, technological innovations and technology. You mentioned 74 sensors on a turbine, the fiber optic network, and SAP and VR and AR. And how did all these initiatives impact on the finances of Suzlon?
So the moment we implemented all these measures which I spoke about, the first thing due to SAP and the material resource planning module, MRP module, which it done was our availability of spares at site level dramatically improved. The moment spares availability at the site level improves, the downtime of machines started reducing. And we have very strict contracts where we have to guarantee 95 to 97% availability. And if the availability goes below that, we used to pay heavy liquidity damages. So the moment we incorporated all these measures, the downtime reduced. Due to predictive maintenance and condition-based maintenance, major spares we were able to capture them before they went into catastrophic failure. So our supply chain budget, the SCM budget per turbine per megawatt came down by a large factor. And due to almost zero LDs, high availability, we began to get funding in. Our customers began to pay up on time. As a result, Suzlon, the EBITDA from 2016 to 2021, when I left, rose by almost 15%. It was around 28, 29%, and it was almost close to 45%. It was a dream EBITDA for the entire wind industry in India, 45% EBITDA margin. We got all our O&M contracts cleaned up. We had added incentive clause. So the moment the availabilities began to go up, customers began to pay us some incentive. So we started earning more money. Another very important thing we did was, earlier we were in a culture of use and throw. If a spare went faulty, we were discarding the spares. We set up workshops where we could repair and refurbish spares. We began to repair and refurbish our gearboxes, our bearings, and a number of other spare parts, including electronic spare parts. So that reduced our cost of spares, our working capital on spares, we were able to bring down. We were able to negotiate with our vendors. And once they saw that our health is improving, they began to maintain spares for us, which they could deliver at short notice. So my requirement for net operating working capital reduced dramatically, because now my vendors were holding the spares and sending it to me just in time. So my spare holdings, which were earlier around 500-600 crores worth, we could bring down to about just under 300 crores. So that was a dramatic improvement. We had more capital to work with. Wherever we were in single vendor situation, where spares were coming in from single vendor and they were import, we indigenized. We actually shared our drawings, our technology with local industry, encouraged them to start manufacturing. We forced a lot of our international supply chain to establish repair agencies in India. And considering that we were the biggest player in India, they were willing to cooperate. They set up repair agencies. They began to hold spares for us. And in my contract payments, where we were earlier forced to pay within 60 days of delivery, we were able to negotiate to 120 days. So that further enabled our working capital to be improved. Then we almost cut out cash purchases and we switched to lines of credit with the banks, and we renegotiated with all our banks on lines of credit. So that further improved. And all these activities as a combine saw Suzlon's, that is the service portion, generate profits close to the range of 700-750 crores a year, which helped us actually handle the entire debt crisis which was going on. So that's how we worked on it financially, sir.
That's very nice. And final query I had was that were any key performance indicators set up? And if so, what were they?
Yes. So we had constructed our workers and even the staff and the management salaries based on key performance indicators. 70% was a fixed salary and 30% were based on their performance on these key performance indicators. And it was a very strict system where we could give even 0 out of 30 to certain people, and they didn't get 30% of the salary. And where they performed well, they were drawing even more than the 30%, huge bonuses. So for the operations teams, we had key performance indicators like machine availability, the grid availability, substation availability, our EME availabilities like MTTR, MTBF, on how much they are spending on crane, number of days a site is down due to crane use, reduction in crane use, cost per machine. We began to focus a lot on how profitable is each turbine to us. Each turbine is like a mini power plant. So we began to focus on maintenance cost per turbine, and we had set yardsticks of what bonus will go to the team, and contract-wise profitability. So these were the operations team's KPIs. For the supply chain team, we had KPIs in the terms of what is the inventory per megawatt, what is the inventory per site, per model, how much is the net operating working capital being brought down per 100 megawatts, where all could they convert single vendors to multiple vendors situations, what is the percentage increase in repair and how much they were able to bring down new purchases, as well as another very major thing which we introduced was how much indigenization could they got in. When we joined, we were almost 70% dependent on imports, and we did very well even in COVID period when we were surviving on repair. So these were the performance indicators for the supply chain team. As far as the customer relationship team was, we were selling certain value added products like these mobile apps that we developed to the customers. So we sold them at a cost. So they were being given bonuses based on how many of these apps they could sell to the customers. We how quickly they could renew contracts and how quickly could they get payments. So wherever they could get renew a contract within 30 days or get the payment within 30 days, they were given their KPIs were dependent on that, and they got bonuses based on that. For the finance team, it was based on what is our EBITDA, how much is our LCs, that is lines of credit versus cash procurements, and the total sales, top line and bottom line. So there were KPIs defined for all this. And the team really worked hard because they knew that there's a turnaround happening in the company, and they can actually see their salaries go up by these KPI performances.
Thank you, Brigadier Vijay.
Thank you, sir.
It's been a pleasure discussing the entire gamut of activities in Suzlon as far as MRO is concerned. And it was quite enlightening to know as to how the latest MRO techniques and the cutting edge technology can not only improve your productivity, but also improve your profitability of the company. That was quite some lesson learned from today's discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
And this brings us an end to today's dialogue of MRO Digest Forums. Ladies and gentlemen, please do log on to mrodigestforums.com and leave your comments there. This is Lt Gen Kapil Aggarwal signing off from this particular dialogue of MRO Digest Forums. Thank you and Jai Hind.